with the explanation that this is good for you, ayahuasca is telling me to do this to heal you, and then they return home just in a completely distraught state. So this is common. It happens, by the way, both in South America and in the US. And ego inflation and projection and personality splitting may exacerbate when the individual is unable to contain the psychedelic content post-experience, which really means that it's a good idea to take more time to process the insights. It's a lot of ownership of shadow material that can just be too much to bear in a short period of time. And this could be good work to do with the assistance of an external mental health and integration support. Now, the different psychedelic themes that we just discussed in the previous slides and the myriad of others that we didn't can all have an effect on an individual and their surroundings. Now, through the themes and archetypes of psychedelic journeys, which reveal psychic content that is personal to each user and their life. So again, we have all the themes, plus additionally, through these archetypes, and each individual receives more downloads and insights about their own personal life experience. And some examples of personal themes that can be amplified through psychedelics. So here we see what I call the life pie, which is basically the different aspects of our lives as humans, right? So some themes that can come up in psychedelic journeys that pertain to each of these aspects. So in the cognitive aspect, there can be discussion of identity, who we are as individuals, who we think we are, our judgments, our stories, our inner critic. In the emotional aspect, there could be, again, we talked about traumas, either ones that we know of and ones that we have no idea that we have suffered. A lot of content about early childhood development comes up, especially in the initial stage of psychedelic use. So for example, if a person just approaches psychedelic work and they're pretty new, if they have had trauma, typically they will probably spend multiple ceremonies unveiling and sifting through all that trauma. Also, attachment style comes up a lot, the issue of boundaries or lack thereof. So that's in the emotional aspect. And in the psychosocial relationship, we have issues of authenticity, vulnerability, intimacy, communication, the way that we express ourselves. Also, a lot of family systems, a role within the family. And also, typically the people who do psychedelic work, they seem to be the change agent in the family, which is fascinating. It's like we were inserted into this particular family, and usually there is no one else in the family that even knows what we're doing, and then we come in, and because we change in such an embodied way, then it starts affecting everyone else in the family as well. So the entire family dynamic changes as well. Physically, some things to think about. As Ben mentioned, the idea that ayahuasca oftentimes shows us how to care for ourselves better. The idea of self-care, to care for our diet, our nutrition, sexual practices, energetic practices, somatic awareness, and also medical conditions actually are sometimes revealed under the influence of psychedelics. Like all of a sudden you're alerted to the fact that you have an internal issue. For example, skeleton, or like you have to see a chiropractor. Your urge to go see a chiropractor to get your skeleton on track. So this stuff comes up under the guidance of the medicine. So that's the inner healer, the inner wisdom speaking to you. Your body speaks, and while you're under the influence of the medicine, you're able to hear it better. And spiritually, we talked about interconnectedness, non-duality, a lot of connecting to the higher self, to a newer presentation of God, a higher power, finding our life purpose. And also for a lot of people who get on the psychedelic path, they find that their calling is actually to be of service to other people on the planet and humanity, literally ushering each other into the new era of consciousness. And also another thing that we know, with all this knowledge that comes up, all of a sudden you really realize that you don't know anything, nothing at all. And that's humbling. humbling. So letting go, surrendering, and trusting are core concepts of psychedelic work as well that come up in our daily lives. And as far as home and environment and systems, there can be a lot of alignment with the natural flow. You really get into the idea of that everything in the universe has a natural order. Everything is perfect. There's a cause and effect to everything. You see causation. You understand the idea of karma, the law of karma. You also, you might wake up to the idea that society is a type of systematic oppression. It's just what I call societal disillusionment. You wake up to the power dynamics of how we're also ruining the planet and the suffering that's going on by all sentient beings. And you really start finding the urge to start protecting what we have. Lifestyle-wise, there could be a massive review of releasing stale habits that don't serve us, releasing old relationships that don't serve us, adopting and mastering new habits and behaviors. Change of profession usually comes up. I used to be a makeup artist. And I remember when I had my first big wake-up, massive, expansive psychedelic journey. It took me a few months, but when I finally sat with it and had that accepted, basically what I learned, I immediately decided to go back to school. I signed up within a month or 2 months. I was here at Antioch University, and changed my life. So profession, purpose. Also, the idea of creativity comes up, and also a sense of community is a big one. So all of these things, again, can happen. All these different aspects can get targeted in a single psychedelic journey. So how would one prepare for a journey if they only just knew that this is all possible? You'd probably want to start planning ahead of time, right? And do some homework before, and start looking at some things in your life that could be adjusted to prepare for these potential changes. And then in that way, when we do the preparation work, then we minimize the impact or the jarring potential of these experiences, and thus they are not difficult or bad. We can see the challenge in it, and we see how they challenge us to grow as humans. So if psychedelic experiences can be so provocative and unpredictable, and knowing all these potential positive outcomes, the question at hand is, how can we make these experiences safer? The answer really is simple. It's by talking about them, by having these conversations, we normalize them, because again, millions of people use these substances, and also by offering unbiased information and educational resources and structures. I'd like to present a harm-reducing and benefit-enhancing framework for psychedelic work. And this framework takes into consideration the full spectrum of the psychedelic experience in terms of timelines, the timelines that I